We're talking fishing and taking some questions and talking some tackle on this edition of Tackle Shop Live.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. A young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup.
What's up, Robert? Larry Shope, how you doing? Well, Joshua Quinn, what do you say, buddy?
Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile.
We didn't get any stripers. We were fastened. We went fast mode. Terry Wells, how are you, buddy? Johnny Kopp, how are you doing? Jack Hinkle. Man, Mike Barr. Paul Dynalette, how you doing, man? Dale, how you doing, Dale? What's going on? Man, we got a great show for you guys tonight. Kind of laid back show. We're gonna wing it on a bunch of stuff. So we're going to rely on you guys to send us some questions, and we'll try to answer some questions, but we're going to talk some tournament talk. What's up, Don Roeder? Jeff Riddle, how you doing? Connor McLaughlin, how you doing, Connor? Good to see you. Ed Ranoski, how are you, Ed? Terry Klauser's in the house. Yes, sir. Klauser. Flowers. I think of the Klauser minnow.
I know, it's famous.
It's famous. Chuck Reif, what are you doing, Chuck? You know what, Chuck? I was just talking to Bob Thomas.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a great conversation with Bob Thomas on the telephone the other day. Long time guy.
You know what I was thinking about?
Greg Plank.
About God knows how many years ago, 25 years ago, Chuck and Bob booked me on a guide trip.
Yeah, Bob brought that up in a conversation.
And we went up on the Susquehanna River, and I told him, I said, I picked them up at their hotel, and I'm like, I'm on like the greatest crankbait bite. We're going to crush them. And we went out there and we wore the paint off of about a half a dozen of my favorite bombers, and we didn't catch a damn thing. And
that happens.
Now, these guys are pretty good fishermen.
Oh, yeah. They've been known to catch one or two.
And I'm in a bit of a pickle at this point in the day. So we realized the spawn was over.
Oh.
And we dug out a Lucky Craft Sammy.
Oh, Lord. That's
and
a top water beatdown.
The three of us went on to proceed to just absolutely smoke them. You remember that, Chuck?
Man, we got Raymond Barton in the house. Nelson Mangle, how you doing, Nelson? Kevin Carpenter, what's up, buddy? And Terry Clowers, yes, I mispronounced. I'm sorry.
We got you, Terry.
George got you. George got you covered.
We got you. I'm not much better on the names, Terry, but
yeah,
Mike is really bad.
I'm terrible. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord.
You got that right.
And behind the camera is cameraman Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, I'm doing good. How's everybody going out there?
Well, we heard your pre-Tackle Shop Live, and you were out fishing over the weekend with your son up on Lake Erie with Destin DeMarion.
Oh, yeah.
I was supposed to go, but I got stuck working, as always.
Destin seems to me like a top flight guide.
He did a great job.
I mean, he seems to me like somebody who knows what's up.
I got to tell you something. We were in a 20 boat. There was 20 boats around us. We were literally the only boats catching fish in that 20 boats.
Wow.
He knows what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And even if guys see where he's fishing,
they don't know what they're looking at.
They just don't know.
Yeah,
I can't stand fishing in groups of boats like that.
Right.
Well, the wind was blowing 7,000 miles
an hour.
I
get it. I mean, there's, for a large population of the United States of America, our waters are small.
Yeah.
And small is a relative term by the population density. You know, the Northeast is like this big, but like 41% of the fishermen in the United States of America live in this part of the world.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we're not blessed with big waters. You know, and by big waters, I mean like in the Southeast, there's creek arms on lakes
Yeah.
that are the size of the biggest lake in Pennsylvania, not named Lake Erie.
No, right.
There's an arm off of a lake.
Yeah.
That is as big as our biggest lake.
I think one of our biggest lakes is Racetown Lake at 8,500 acres.
Right.
Well, it's got to be more than 8,500 acres. It's probably 85,000 acres.
I'm not sure.
You might want to get your
I don't think so.
slide rule out on that one.
No, I think it's 8,500 acres.
Wait a minute. This presents itself as a wagering opportunity. Now, before anybody gets the Google machine out, I would like to take the over on 8,500 acres.
I think, what'd you say, 8,500 acres?
Yeah.
And George, what'd you say?
He's taking.
I said, if he said 8,500, I said 85,000.
I think, Mike, you're pretty close to that one.
Yeah, I am.
It's not very. I can't remember exactly what it is.
I think it's 8,500.
Silence.
He's checking it. I need a fact check by you guys. You guys that are watching.
Siri, how many acres is Racetown Lake in Huntington, Pennsylvania?
Roughly 28 miles long.
I found this on the web.
Oh, you're not going to tell me. Hold on. Stand by. I'm efforting this wager.
Racetown, then Wallenpaupack is.
How much is this wager?
8,300. Justin Bean.
Son of a.
It's $1,000 wager.
I figured you were
It's
close.
$1,000.
Blue Marsh is right around 1,000. They say.
Yeah.
So I figured it was close.
Yeah, 8,300.
Right,
Justin,
so it's just
Dale,
a little under 85,000.
Yeah. So eat that one there, big fella.
What do I owe you?
$1,000.
Yeah, 100 for every 1,000 you bet.
Here's a down payment.
Okay.
But no, you guys brought up this
$1 a day for the rest of your life.
There you go. You guys brought up this fishing trip, and it was very interesting because I know he wanted to fish a little bit different than we did, but the wind, like Mike said, the wind kind of dictated. We tried fishing for pre-spawners, and the wind was brutal. So we had to go in these coves, which I don't think he wanted to do. It's not as fun. You know, it's fun to catch them big pre-spawners and maybe
the wind.
Yeah, the wind did it. The wind did it. And I'm telling you,
Penn's the wind, man.
He knew his stuff though.
Yeah.
And if anybody needs to go up to Lake Erie, look him up.
I saw Don Roeder's going with him next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don's a good long customer.
Well, the
long time customer of ours.
The wind hasn't stopped blowing for like 2 months.
Right.
Although when Mike and I fished on Sunday, we had a nice little southwest, maybe 10 knots. Patrick Hilbert, scroll up.
Hang on here. Tammy.
Patrick Hilbert's on.
Greenman's in the house. Patrick
Hilbert's in the house.
Yeah. Patrick Hilbert.
Remember what happened the last time we saw him?
Patrick Carey's in the house too. Kenny Hodgins and Dave Richardson. Thank you guys for stopping in. And I was correct on the bet. And he will be paying me for sure.
$1 a day.
Whatever. I'll take it.
I really thought it was 85,000.
Well, with inflation, I think it's $3 now.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry.
That was a poor wager on my part.
Now, guys, I want to ask you something.
I don't know what you're thinking.
I lost
5,000 acres.
I figured Muddy Run Park was like 8,500 acres.
I think that's like 800 acres if it's that.
Get the excavators out.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. It's all about the zeros.
But George,
or in this case, it's all about the Benjamins.
There you go.
Yeah.
George, something pretty cool happened this weekend and involved you and Mike. And you got the big boat out this weekend.
Yes.
Man.
The Skeeter was
flying
high.
Yeah. Was riding well
the bug was out.
Yep. We put the new battery in on Saturday night and we made a move. And we went down to the Chesapeake Bay, and
we did.
Everybody who fished the Summer Slam caught every damn fish down there because it was tough for us. well, it was kind of like it was a search and destroy mission for me and George. We haven't been there for, a long time. It was our first trip down there this year, so we were looking for grass and
don't sugarcoat it.
Isolated stuff. It was bad. I mean, it was
caught
tough.
7 fish in like 14 hours of fishing.
Yeah, and, we got there. George was late picking me up, and then we had to put oil in the boat, which should have been all done the night before. Which I don't know what he was thinking. And
I wasn't totally prepped up.
Then I had to get the coffee and get the coffee ready, and so we got down there. I think we were on the water at 7, and I honestly I feel like the guys that caught him probably caught him early because we did talk to some people who had him right at 7, and they said they caught him. They had 4 or 5 in the well at that time. So, but anyway, it was fun. It was a great trip. We went down there. We learned a ton on electronics, Nick. The Humminbird 360 is the greatest invention ever in electronics in my mind. And then you pair that with the forward-facing sonar in the grass, and you could just find. And the funny thing about down there is the grass is really like patchy. It's real patchy. So you could go along, and you would see it on a 360, and you would scan over, and you'd see it really good, and you'd be able to know exactly where to cast with the forward-facing. With that 360, dude, unbelievable.
It's interesting you say that, Mike, because we just put that video up yesterday.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to watch it, you can really see in that 360 that grass lights up.
Yeah.
And you can see, the spots in between it. And,
yeah.
Really, I don't think it's as much of a learning curve with the 360 as the forward view. What do you guys think?
No, it's a 360. You turn it on and it just shows you what the heck's going on. I don't know if he has adjustments on there or what he did, but it just shows you the grass. It's so simple to see it. You can really pick it out. But I learned about
a lot of it has to do with the color palette.
Yeah.
And I set it up for what looks best to me.
Yeah.
Which it's real easy to change that color palette, but I use that kind of, I think they call it crawfish orange, or it's kind of like a brown orange kind of a color. And to my eyesight, the grass kind of looks like little cotton balls on the bottom of on the bottom. It's like, looks like little cotton balls out there. And, what I like about it is you can really accurately, like I'll literally kind of line my rod up on the screen. If there's a little patch of grass or a clump of grass.
Yeah.
I get right down to like the kind of like lining the rod up and picking a spot out on the water and then keeping my eyes on that spot and making my cast and trying to hit that spot. Because what is hard, the only hard thing about reading grass on a graph is the size of the clump or the bed. If you're on if you're on like a 55 or a 60 foot range, that's not that big.
Right.
So the relationship of the size of what you're looking at to what it really is in real size.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to line up, pick a spot on the water, make that cast, because you want that bait to come through and contact that grass. Now we're strictly talking about grass here.
Yeah,
yeah. A brush pile would be the same thing.
But the thing I learned,
or a rock.
The thing I learned that was really big for me was the thickness of the grass. You could tell.
You can
by the shadowing. It would actually, when we got to really big, thick stuff, it
taller.
The taller it was,
but
and
not real
thicker.
Tall.
No, you could tell how tall it was because it would shadow behind it a lot, and it would almost darken it out. We got to one spot at the end of the day where you could visually see the patch, the darker spot, and when the 360 would go around, it would hit that spot, glow the front of it, and darken out the back of it, and you could tell that, and you knew it right away. You could see it in your head, so it really helped you learn how you can read the thickness of the grass and the height. And so it was neat. It was a very successful trip when it came to that kind of stuff.
And the other aspect of that, guys, is coming from the side imaging world. If you're not familiar with 360, but you are familiar with side imaging, you're familiar with 360.
Yeah, it shows up the same way
360 is basically side imaging
all around you.
that spins around your boat. And the beauty of it is the reason that Mike and I really fell in love with it so quick is now we can target those casts before we drive past
Or get
what
on
we
top
wanna
of it.
target our cast to.
Yeah, get on top of it.
And we're primarily fairly shallow water fishermen, so we run like a 60-foot range.
Yeah.
And we run, we have the rings on there so you can kind of
Judge the
helps
distance.
you judge your distance, and
Yeah.
it's very efficient. Now, as far as the forward facing, what's nice about that is now you can pan that area and you can sort of see where the edge of that is a little more distinctively than on the. You can get pretty close with the 360, but when you pan out there and it kind of fluffs up in front of you, and then you pan and it cuts off, now you know that you can look at the head of your trolling motor, assuming your transducer's mounted parallel or in line with your trolling motor, and you can really target that edge of that grass, and if you want to get that edge and work in a little bit. So I mean,
we didn't
one or the other. I would say 360 would be the choice of that.
Well, some of your viewers had a question here, and I just want to give you 2 tips. First of all, we're talking Mega 360.
Yeah.
The Mega 360 is much easier to read than the regular version of the 360. That one there, you had to decipher what you were looking at.
Yeah.
The Mega 360 is the deal. The other thing is if you're fishing shallow water, like you guys were, for everybody out there, it's so important, like George said, that you narrow your width that you're looking. You don't want to be 100 feet out. You don't want to be all the way out there. You want to bring that down to 60, 50. And George, do you have to do the same thing then with your live? Are you doing the same thing?
Yeah. On the live in shallow water, and by shallow water, I'm talking, let's just say 4 or 5 feet or less. I'm usually running that about 45 to 50 feet. And I'm running about a low to mid 60s on the gain. And I'm running about a mid 60s up a little bit, maybe almost to 70 on the color gain. And I run high noise rejection, and I run TVG off. And that's, for me, is how I get my best picture. Because the shallower the water, the more interference you get. If you're looking out 45 or 50 feet at like 30 to 50 feet, your bottom's getting kind of faded, and you're getting, because there's a lot of, in that shallow water, everything's picked up, everything's magnified. It's not that it doesn't pick it up in deep water, but your pixels are targeted into a much smaller area, so it shows every little bit of interference on there.
Yeah.
So those are the settings that we run with. And to be honest with you, throughout the course of the day, I really don't screw with them much. Every once in a while on the forward, I never touch the 360. I mean, we're the 360 setup, I leave it there 99% of the time.
I was going to say the same thing with the 360. The 360, the only thing I really adjust is the width of how far.
Yeah, I kind of already screwed around with what's it, the color scale,
right?
And there's not I think the important thing to know about this, there's not wrong settings. It's what looks right to you.
Yeah.
It's like back in the days of side imaging, when we were talking a lot of side imaging, I would often toggle between the 2 kilohertz ranges, even though the one was designed for super deep water of the ocean. That doesn't mean you can't use it in mid-depth freshwater fishing. It won't blow up if you switch it over there. The worst thing you can do is reset everything. The worst thing you can do is have to do a factory reset and start over.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to blow up. Your machine's not going to break. It's not, you might learn something, but it'll pick up the same with the settings not right as it will with the settings right. You just might not be able to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Still picking it up.
Yeah.
You just might not be able to see it. So what's right? What's right is what looks right to you.
Yeah. So, we might not have caught a lot of fish, although we did catch fish. We caught fish on a various array of baits, but we learned a lot. Every time we go out, we learned a huge amount of information. And we did spend a lot of time just driving around, just looking for stuff, isolated, out of the way stuff that nobody really was hitting yet. And we found some really nice stuff that's going to pan out for us in the future that nobody was even
We found a honey hole
looking at, and it's really good grass. And I think it's a post spawn spot. So these fish are going to be coming to that. So that was fun to find that out. So it was a good day overall. We had a really good time.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Got pushed off right at the end of the day. We fished till 4:30, I think. And then a thunderstorm came in and kind of pushed us off. But, because I was ready to go, man. I was ready to go all night. I mean, I was into it. I was in the zone. I was like, really just when I figured out the electronics to the point that because I'm not on them much, but yet that day I was running the boat a lot more than I normally do, and I was really learning a ton of stuff. Like it was neat to visualize what you were looking at and then see it because it was low tide or whatever the tide was. You could see that grass, and it was shallow water, and you could see it on that, and you can really, really learn. And that sometimes is what you got to do every now and then, is just to kind of learn, is just see, and then we'll see it on the graph and say, okay, that's what that looks like. And then, you put that in your head, and now when you're going around and you see that, oh, that's although I can't see it, that's what that is, so that was fun that way. A question here, Mortimer Fishing, what is your favorite lake in Pennsylvania besides Lake Erie? Well, for me, it's Racetown Lake. I'm kind of partial to it. My wife's from Huntington, Pennsylvania, which is right next to the lake, and I spent a ton of time on Racetown over the years. It's a pristine lake. It's beautiful. It's a mountain lake. So you got scenery is just unbelievable, but the fishing is really, really good out there. And right now, if anybody wants to go, it's doing one of those really good uphill climbs. And it didn't peak out yet, but it's on a rebound that's unbelievable right now. So they're catching a lot of big fish. It's a great smallmouth lake. It's a great largemouth lake. There's fish being caught in 5 and 6 pounds and 7 pound smallies again, like they were back in the 80s when I first started fishing it. And they are also catching 7 and 8 pounds largemouth up there. And there's great grass on that lake. It's a grass lake. It's points. It's a little bit of everything. It's a lot of fun. It's big too. I mean, it's for what we do, it's 23 miles long or 24 miles long and 8,300 acres. So it's a big lake
Seems like 85
for us and what we do, but it is crystal clear water on one end, stained dirty water on the other end, so you can fish anything you want, frogs to flipping to Carolina, great Carolina rigging lake, cranking, and an awesome topwater lake. So that's my choice for Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal lake. And I would not hesitate to fish Racetown any given day of the week. But to answer the question, I like a little reservoir. So on the bottom 40 miles of the Susquehanna River, we have a series of dams. And the last dam before you get to the mighty Chesapeake Bay is the Conowingo Dam, which is a big hydroelectric project that went across the river, in the early 1900s. And it is it's backed up a small lake. It's, what would you say, 14 miles long, maybe?
Yeah.
But I always felt like that it offered every kind of option that a fisherman needed to hone his craft. It had offshore, structure with all forms of cover on it. It had flats, it had river ledges, it had, submerged man-made cover like railroad grades and what have you. It has grass, it has, current, when they're running the turbines and the generators. So it's a real true miniature, and it's got a great population of fish, which obviously has, changed over the years. Now the smallmouth has decided to pretty much dominate the population. There's still some good largemouth fish in there.
Great largemouth fishing down there.
And that's my favorite, Pennsylvania lake.
Yeah. Before we get to you, Nick, I moved down the southern end of Lancaster County.
Oh yeah.
So we've heard.
And I love it down there. And I got great neighbors. I got fantastic neighbors. And most welcoming people in the world. But one that really sticks out to me is Geraldine Reed. I call her Jerry because she's my neighbor and she's cool as hell. And she's chimed in tonight and she's saying hi. And Jerry, how you doing? Thanks for stopping in. I know you're a big fan of Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, and I really appreciate you chiming in here. And you are the greatest neighbor in the southern end, and you got that title tonight. So thanks for stopping by. So what do you got there, Nick? What's your favorite Pennsylvania, other than Erie?
All right, so I'm going to throw a curveball in there. My favorite would be Raystown, but we already talked about that. I'm going to say another one that's overlooked a lot.
Don't say Wallenpaupack.
Nope. I'm going Knox and Mixon. And because it's, a 20 horsepower or lower.
Yeah.
But it's a big lake with some humongous bass in that lake.
What is up with that place? That place is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The fish they're catching in there.
Yep.
And
I like it.
A lot of people don't know about that lake.
Right.
They really don't. I mean, there's the local people there and that surrounding area. First of all, it's a pain in the ass to get there. It's a terrible drive.
It's 90 miles from here.
It's a terrible drive. And it's horrible. But we have a lot of customers that fish that place. And these guys are smoking giant fish.
I like it. I fished a tournament on it years ago, and
it's this big swim bait lake.
I'd never been there before in my life, and I just rolled up and launched. And it was kind of like I got a clean slate. I didn't ask any information from anybody. I just put my boat in the water. And I'm at the boat ramp, and I look down. I see grass. I'm like, this looks pretty good. I fished there all day.
Yeah.
I ended up chasing schoolers around. I found points that had beautiful stump fields on them. Just a beautiful lake.
There's pads in there, too.
It's very underrated, and I think it's because you can't open up your motor.
Yeah.
Guys like to go fast. Raystown's perfect for that.
Yeah.
But that lake there, like you said, it just has some giant bass. I mean, it really does.
Well, the Swim Bait Nation found out about that, and they are swim baiting the hell out of that lake right now, and they are catching some giant fish. So anybody who's wanting to sharpen their tactics, one of them being swim bait fishing, that's a great place to go and chuck them because it's a pristine body of water.
I fished with the gentleman that is the owner of Sport Fishing Outlet, which is towards in that direction from here.
Oh, yeah.
And he showed me some pictures of bass that they catch there on their swim baits, but also the stripers.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, him and his brother caught
Biggins.
Like 30, 35 pound landlocked stripers.
Yeah.
So it's got stripers. It's got, a very nice bass population. I don't know about the smallmouth. I'm not totally boned up on the lake. I don't know about the smallmouth situation. I would imagine some good crappie fishing and what have you, but beautiful lake. Absolutely gorgeous lake.
Yeah.
And a nice challenge in post spawn, which is when I fished it in the summer. Very, very nice challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nice, great question. Fun answering.
Oh yeah. Great. Absolutely. So yeah. Andre, how you doing, Andre? Abigail McCain, how you doing? Thanks for stopping in.
From Louisiana.
From Louisiana. Great state of Louisiana. Lots
Love
of fishing down there, Nick.
It's got to be hot right now.
I think they got lakes bigger than 8,500 acres down there.
They have lakes that are 85,000 acres down there.
I believe that. I think that's where you can hit a home run down there.
Well, I mean, on the border between Louisiana and Texas, you got Sam Rayburn.
Yeah, huge.
You got Toledo Bend.
Yeah.
I mean,
Big old.
if you need anything more than that,
Big old
you
bodies of
also
water.
got yourself a problem because those are two of the best in the country.
Tim Swope says he fished St. Clair, ran into Dave Anderson. Yeah. And George and Dave Anderson. Sure. Those guys they stop in here every now and then. He still has a house down here. So he pops in every now and then, and he's living up there, fishing St. Clair all the time, catching all those giant smallies. So
what a great place.
yeah, what a great place to go fishing. So let's move on here a little bit, Nick. We're going to go into some tournament talk. Well, we watched probably 40 hours of bass fishing over the weekend. And the other thing about Sunday, which was cool, is George had his telephone and his battery with him. So we watched the whole last day, Sunday, right on right where we were fishing. It was cool.
It was 32 hours, but I'm just saying.
It seemed like 40. But what was that? Lake Fork?
Mm-hmm.
Man, they caught some nice fish. They caught some big fish. Our boy GDP did well.
He did. He made day 3.
Yep.
Got himself some good points.
Yep.
Of course, we're pulling for him.
Oh, absolutely.
He's our guy.
Yeah, and he had a great tournament. So good for him. But what were the standings of that thing? I mean, they had some. I mean, Livesey. I mean, geez.
I mean, they busted out several century belts.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, it was an interesting tournament. I mean, there was fish, very few of them. There were some fish still spawning. The majority of the fish were post spawn, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
There was fish up on no water. There was fish in, mid depths, not real deep. The fish hadn't really gone deep yet.
Yeah.
There was offshore.
Yeah, there was guys fishing.
But that Bat Lake is like, I mean, there's humps and bumps and lumps and road beds. And I mean, you can be out in the middle of the lake and fish in 2 foot of water.
Yeah.
Standing timber.
How'd you like to navigate that one, Nick?
I'm telling you, I was watching a little bit of that and I'm thinking, man, how many lower units did they go through?
Yeah, I know.
Well, the boat lanes are marked. You can run the boat lanes. They're marked with PVC. You can actually buy a map card just on Lake Fork.
Wow.
Locally sourced map card that shows the
guy, Lake Fork guy has it.
Shows the unmarked
paths.
The unmarked paths. Now the lake's down 6 feet, so it's pretty easy to run.
You can see it.
Because just run between the trees. You're good. Open in the open lanes. You're good because the lanes are cut. But
yeah,
you had a lot of post spawn fish that were pulling out to feed up. There was some pre spawn fish. There was some spawning fish, but
it's late for Texas, don't you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, it's May.
Late for Texas, though.
But
is that northern Texas or
East
Texas?
East. Yeah. Yeah, there's no place on earth that's called northern Texas.
Well, I don't know.
There's North Texas, but there's no northern Texas.
Oh, okay.
And there's East Texas, but there's no eastern Texas. Are you picking up on the
no.
Let me go here? Well, you get down to Texas and talk like that, and you're going to end up with a fat lip. You can say what you want about a lot of things, but you can't be messing up the geography.
Okay.
But East Texas, Lake Fork, managed by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And if anybody, which I doubt, but if anybody from the Pennsylvania Fish Commission is going to view this or is watching it live or catches it on a rerun, I mean, just watch like some reruns of Bass Live on like any state not named Pennsylvania, and then go kick yourself in the ass, because what Texas Parks and Wildlife has done
Yeah.
for the sportsmen,
Amazing.
this is
Amazing.
all done to create fishing opportunities in Texas.
Yeah.
Which drives business, which brings people in. Lake Fork is a primo, primetime, bucket list destination that gets pummeled with unyielding fishing pressure. It's absolutely full and filthy with giant fish. I mean, you do not come back into the bait shop at the end of the day and get to bragging on your 6-pounders, because you are going to be asked to leave.
Yeah.
Because everybody catches 6-pounders.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This lake is full of 8s and 9s and 10s. Although, if I may, the lunker for this tournament was a Mark Frazier at 8.12.
That's small, I think.
Well, for that lake it is.
For that lake.
For that lake it is.
They've always had 10-pounders out of there for lunkers.
Yeah, but you're in that post-spawn window. These fish recently, the bulk of them recently finished spawning.
Yeah.
So you're in that post-spawn window. And
they caught them on topwaters too, Nick. Did you see some of that?
I did not.
They were walking some big spooks, man, and they were coming up and smashing it.
They destroyed them on topwaters.
Yeah.
Day 1
and
and
that
day
was cool.
2.
I mean, of 5-6 pounder coming up and smashing the topwater is just great, and those guys freaking out trying to get them in the boat.
Imagine.
Super spooks and Berkeley cane walkers. And the one guy, Shane LeFew, he had one jack up his cane walker on day 1 and just like pick his teeth with the hooks. And he had to sit down.
That's a big in there.
Yeah, he had to sit down and like dig out a new set of hooks that were like big boy hooks.
Yeah, 3X baby.
Put on that bait. So,
that's why we sell those 3X hooks back here, man, because that's what you need.
Yeah, when you're in there, when you're in the hook aisle and you see like the regular Gamakatsu.
Yeah.
And then you see the 2X.
Yeah.
Gamakatsu.
Big giant.
And you see them in stock here in like 1.0 sizes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's that all about? Well, there's people down in Texas and California and Louisiana that order those hooks from us.
Yeah.
Because the fish they have just like
annihilate all of our hooks.
They hurt the other hooks. And when you go over to the terminal aisle and you see the super wire split rings.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you buy.
Absolutely.
So you have to upgrade your game down there because you're dealing with big fish and heavy cover. And, you better be throwing your top waters on 50-pound braid and the like.
Yeah.
So the super spook and the cane walker played big time. And the reason for that is, guys, is the primary forage on that lake is gizzard shad. Now, if you know anything about gizzard shad, they get big, right? Like big. When you go over to the swim bait aisle over here and you're traipsing down through the mega bass wall and you see the 6-inch mag draft and you're from this part of the world, you're like, man, that's a pretty big swim bait.
Yeah.
No. The 8-inch and the 10-inch mag draft are what they throw down there.
Yeah.
And up here we call mud shad, but they're basically big, mature gizzards, and these fish specifically target them, right?
Yeah.
So the gizzard shad is the primary forage. The other interesting thing that was taking place in this tournament, and I think we can all learn from everyone watching this show, is the bluegill spawn occurs after the bass spawn. And, we need to talk about, we need to do a show maybe next week on the bluegill spawn.
Yeah.
Because it's a deal.
Yeah.
But a lot of these fish were focusing on bluegill that were on the beds. And I was just thinking, and I was thinking it, and I heard Zona say it, like how would you like to be a bluegill that set up a colony on some old bass beds, and then these freaking big head 6, 8, 9-pound bass are just like hanging out, like.
You remember when you were messing with us
in the house next to yours, and
Yeah.
every now and again they just rolled up.
Yeah,
Ride or die, boys. We're heading over to the Gill's house.
The old gills would be beating up on them while they were spawning. They're like,
Payback, so you know what?
yeah, paybacks are hell, absolutely.
So, the guys that really kicked it were keyed in on the gizzard shad, but they also did not overlook the bluegill. And there was, the first 2 days, there was some really nice remnants of a shad spawn. That's something that we've been exploring a lot. Because, for a lot of the people in the country, a shad spawn is a very mysterious thing. We've talked about it numerous times. They had a little bit of a shad spawn here. So, those top waters played, the Super Spook in Bone, the Cane Walker. Those were your big daddies there. Of course, I'm sure everybody else's brand of walking bait was working good. Lee Livesey, of course, he guides on the lake, fished every square inch of the lake. Actually, he said the first day of practice there was about 1,000 boats on the water fishing local tournaments. Yeah, that's right. I didn't stutter. 1,000. And he's like, I can't be seen anywhere. I can't be seen on anything I plan to fish. So he just started graphing stuff that he's literally never fished before in his life. And didn't he go and find the winning fish on a bald hump in the middle of nowhere that had...
George, I got to water the dog. Hang on a second.
I got you. There's work being done back there.
George, I wanted to ask you something. With this Lake Fork, you watched a lot of the video or a lot of the coverage.
I watched all of it.
Did this lake fish big, or were they clustered like we've been seeing locally and stuff like that?
I mean, the offshore guys, you had like Brandon Palaniuk, who finished second. He was sharing his primary area the first 2 days with, and I forget who it was he was sharing it with. But they would fish side by side.
Yeah.
They would fish side by side, literally side by side. And I want to say it was Drew Cook. Drew Cook.
I kind of remember you saying that.
Because on day 2, the obviously the launch order is reversed. And Palaniuk went down to this little point that came off the dam, and Drew Cook came pulling in and like pulled up 5 feet away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like, he knew he was coming in, but they were cranking.
I love watching Palaniuk's 360.
Yeah.
When he pulled up on that dam, he would say, there they are. And he was cool because he would bring the camera up and he would show you his setup, and he would say, right there they are. You can see there was like 40 of them just lined up, and he'd throw this freaking giant spoon out there, man. And he would with a spoon, and he'd crack one, he cracked like a 4.5, 5 pounder, and then he'd throw out again and crack another one. Then it would just shut down for a while. And then he would work out, and then he'd bust his crankbait out. But just seeing that was cool as hell.
Yeah, and also the crankbait. Him and Drew were cranking.
Yeah, they were cranking. That's what I'm saying. They would kind of alternate between that.
What was interesting about what Mike was saying is it didn't matter who caught him, because once one of them caught one, the school
is fired up.
Yeah, and I mean, Palaniuk was throwing a DT-16.
Right.
And I don't know what Drew Cook was throwing, but he was probably, if I know Drew Cook, he was probably throwing like a Little John DD-70 or a DD-60.
Right.
And they'd wail on him, man. They just wail on him. And you know, they were catching, for example, I made some notes here, some big bags. Palaniuk had 30 pounds, 1 ounce on day 2.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, Drew Cook's boat was 5 feet away from his.
Yeah.
So they were both whaling on the same school of fish, and he weighed in 30.1. Day 1, Lee Livesey weighed in 32 pounds, 1 ounce.
God, what a bag, man.
You know, he caught his fish on a crankbait as well.
Yeah.
As his spook. But then in the later rounds of the event, he had to drag a jig. And
and a worm. I saw he's throwing a worm, a jig, and throwing some other baits.
Yeah, Swindell finished real good in this, and Swindell and Livesey, they both spent a lot of time throwing Magnum trick worms on Magnum shaky heads. So the Magnum shaky head is a 1/2 to 3/4 ounce shaky head. And the point I want to make, guys, nobody Texas rigs anymore on these offshore ledges. They throw Magnum shaky heads or heavy big hook swing heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the shaky head has like a 5/0 or a 6/0 hook in it.
Yeah.
And it weighs a 1/2 to 3/4.
Strike King has those.
We sell the Strike King. We sell the Big Bite baits.
Yeah.
They have a really nice Gamakatsu hook in theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
George, what's your theory behind why the Texas rig is going away and they're replacing them with that? Is it hookup ratio, you think? Or?
Hookup ratio, and when you tension up that shaky head, it'll rock up because everything's attached. The jig head and the hook are all one piece. So when you tension that up, it'll rock up. If it's laying over on its side and you tension it up, it'll rock up and rock that worm up. So you can rock it up, pop it over a piece of cover, drag it to the next piece of cover, and rock it up. It's kind of like the same concept as dragging a football head. You know, that football head, when you get into a piece of cover, you can rock it up and rock that trailer up. Well, they're doing this with, you know, mag trick worms. They're doing this with 10 and 11-inch ribbon tail worms, which with in the past, it was all Texas rig work.
Yeah.
You know, it was not uncommon to see somebody rig up with a 3/8 to a 1/2 ounce bullet weight, a 5/0 worm hook.
Yeah, they throw that on a Michael's asking about what rod they throw that on. It you know, you want to throw for those situations,
big
man,
rod.
You're throwing a big rod. You're
7.6.
You know, you're 7.5, 7.6, 7.7.
Heavy.
You know, medium heavy to heavy action, fast taper rods.
20 fluoro.
And 20 fluoro those guys were throwing. Yep.
Yep.
And for everybody that's giving questions, just we're gonna answer them here, but we're just gonna go through this segment here, and then we're gonna get back on some questions. So keep those questions coming. We're gonna scroll up through them and answer everybody's questions.
Another cool thing, George, about this tournament, I was talking to Greg on the way in here, and you talked about Brandon Palaniuk, and who was he fishing? Drew Cook, you think?
Brandon Palaniuk and Drew Cook were fishing the same little offshore piece of cover structure down at the dam.
And they got that school fire.
Little.
Yeah.
Okay, they got that 40 fish or whatever you said.
Yeah.
Well, Greg said they found like 100 fish school. And he said no matter what you did, you could not get that school to fire up. So, you know, that's just the way it works sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, to your point, if you watched Lee Livesey on the final day, well, actually, if you watched him on Saturday or Sunday, he was on his big school, and they would not fire up. I mean, he had 0 fish in the box on day 3 at like 10:30 in the morning. And he's like, right there they are. Everything I need to win this tournament's right there, and they would not bite. And what was interesting was he said those fish would pull up, back off. Pull up and back off. And another interesting point on that concept of waiting them out was Kobe Krieger on day 2. He said he pulled up on his spot, he hit spot lock, and 8 hours later, he pulled the trolling motor up and he went back in and he made the exact same cast. Didn't vary at all for the entire day. And he said every 45 minutes, and he had a hell of a bag, 27, 28 pounds. Every 45 minutes or so, I'd catch one.
You think Mike could do that, George?
Man, that takes a special.
That's a tough one.
That takes a special kind of patience.
I can gear down in this in the when they go offshore and stuff. I can kind of gear down and beat it around, but the anchor on one spot, unless I could see him like those guys were seeing him on the graph.
And some of these lessons from this tournament particularly are gonna play for all of us.
Yeah,
because a large portion of the country is just starting to come into post spawn.
Yeah,
up here in the Northeast, we still have a lot of spawning activity.
Yep,
yet to come, but our neighbors to the not too distant south are pretty much winding up on the spawn, and our neighbors a little farther south than that are already in post spawn. So a lot of these lessons that we're talking about here are really going to play.
Yeah, this is exactly why we like to go over this, especially in tournaments down south like that, because you can see what's coming, and it's stuff that you can bring fresh into your mind, and you can, definitely apply a lot of this stuff around here. I mean, why wouldn't they hit a wobble head with a magnum trick worm on it, or a shaky head with a magnum trip? Why wouldn't they? I mean, we got big bass. We got 3, 4, 5 pound bass that'll eat.
Well, I mean, we've fished big worms in post spawn forever.
Yeah.
I really have a tremendous amount of confidence in a Zoom old monster worm, which is 10.5 inch. Now I do fish mine on a Texas rig, which I may make an adjustment and go to a shaky or a wobble head. But
I'm making an adjustment on that.
In post spawn, that big worm is hot.
Yeah.
Hot, real hot. A magnum trick worm and I'm just talking Zoom talk. You can plug in your favorite brand and they all make a worm like that.
Yeah.
If you're a Strike King guy, it's a bull worm. If you're a Berkeley guy, it's the power worm. If you're a whatever, if you're a Z-Man guy, it's the mag
TRD.
The mag, no, it's the mag finesse worm. The big mag finesse worm. So, whatever brand you like, they make that worm. But it plays big time in post spawn all over the country.
Yeah. Andre is, asking about when's the best time to fish offshore versus shallow. Well, funny thing about that is, and you can see this with even in the Elite Series, there's always a shallow bite. There's always a shallow bite. You just got to figure it out. The offshore stuff, kicks in. Of course, around the spawn, you're not going to fish offshore, but prior to that and post spawn, it is a big deal. A lot of guys aren't comfortable with it because it has a lot to do with electronics and reading your electronics and having confidence in what you're seeing and how to understand the structure that you're actually fishing. George and I, over the years, we learned to love the offshore stuff. We learned to love to see how stuff laid, and we'd argue about it all the time. The way, shoals would tail off one way or tail off another, and you're looking for something different on that shoal or a
sweet
point,
spot,
that sweet spot on that point or whatever. And we would dial it in. I love that type of fishing. I absolutely love it. And that's, we learned that a lot with 2D sonar and, running across it and figuring it out and looking at the contours on the land and putting it into the water. That is art in itself. So if you're good at that, that's what you're dying for coming up here, is that offshore stuff. So you might spend more time out deep, but a guy like, what's his name, who has the aluminum boat?
John Cox,
he doesn't do it. He fishes shallow year round. He's a guy who makes a living fishing shallow, and he will figure out a shallow bite. Even in the dog days of summer, he'll fish shallow. So,
well, there's always a shallow contingent.
Yep.
And remember, right after the spawn, on your reservoirs, particularly, a lot of your fish do start to migrate offshore. But remember, after the bass spawn, the bluegills come up and colonize the bass bedding areas. And a lot of those bass stay shallow to be opportunistic feeders on those bluegill. So, keep that in mind. Also, depending on your location, you still have shad spawn activity in the mornings.
Yeah.
So, there's always a shallow population. There's always a great time to stay shallow, i.e. post spawn.
We would always fish, in post spawn. We would always, figure out our deep bite, which we were pretty good at figuring out pretty quickly. And then, the guy told us, man, he said, you need to figure out that deep bite, but then you need to go shallow and figure out that shallow bite, because who knows what's going to happen. A big front could come through and the deep bite or the shallow bite might turn off and a deep fish might be better, or ahead of a big front, those shallow fish might fire up and that might be the deal, and you missed it because you never checked it. So you always try to fish all of the patterns when you're practicing for a tournament, not just figure out the grass bite, not just figure out the rock bite, but you need to check it all and you need to figure it all out when preparing for a tournament. So we learned that a long time ago from a guy who told us that and said, you guys need to, this is what you need to do when you're practicing. This is, if you got something good going, just don't give up at 3 o'clock. You need to go out and figure out the shallow bite now and figure that out. So,
and George, you brought up a really good point too. We talked about the shad spawn. We just had a show on that.
Yeah.
But I think it really does wig people out with the brim beds, the sunfish beds. You see them. Like I remember going up to Candlewood and I seen all these brim beds, but we definitely need to talk about how do you attack that,
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
yeah, and that's going to be a great show because, there's a lot of, it's really basic. The methods to the madness are real basic. And I really think that in the next 2 weeks, we should pick a week and do a bluegill, maybe get a nice guest on that's known for that.
Yeah.
Let's work on that as an upcoming feature. But it plays, man. It plays around here big time. We have some of our bodies of water around here have a type of sunfish in the family called the warmouth. And they are prolific. And when they spawn in like, I mean, it's like it's like Woodstock, man. It's like a massive freaking bluegill orgy. And
what'd you say?
It's like Woodstock orgy.
What does that have to do with it?
They're in there by the billions. And these bass are just, they can't get away from it, So it's something we really need to talk about and break down, like we like to do. Mike, just to put a bow on this tournament.
Yeah.
I like my stats.
Yeah. Throw them at us, brother.
I got some numbers up in here. Lee Livesey, 113, 11 ounces.
Wow. Jeez. Oh. Second place.
32-pound, 1 ounce on day one.
Yeah.
The dirty 30. Okay. Second place was a tie. Well, I mean, it went to Palaniuk because of his big limit. So the way Bass does it is when you tie, the bigger limit breaks the tie. That's the first tiebreaker. Now, if they both tie, then they have other criteria. And I think it ends in a steel cage death match, but that's like 10 tiebreakers in.
Yeah.
So Palaniuk and Swindell both had 102.2. Now, Palaniuk broke that tie with his 30-pound, 1 ounce limit caught on day two. But the interesting thing about this, and I really want everybody to hyper focus on this. Swindell was riding down the lake, heading back to the weigh-in, working his way back. He was, he had a couple minutes, and he rode past a boat dock, and his inner voice said, you need to fish a jig on that boat dock. And he rode past it, and he did a freaking U-turn and drove back, put the trolling motor down, stalked up on these docks. And these docks were kind of weird because the lake was so low. The dock was like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could commit suicide by jumping off these docks. And he threw his jig, which he had been dragging, and he swam it down this dock and caught a 4 and change, which gave him he didn't have the century belt until his gut stopped him there.
Wow.
So he got his century belt, which is kind of a cool thing. We talked about that in the past. You actually get a big old,
It's awesome.
WWE.
I was like, I wonder what it is, like a little belt buckle or something. This is WWE stuff here, man. This thing's huge, beautiful.
We might have to come up with our own belt for the show.
You know what, George? I love that story though, because how many times does your gut, you have a gut feeling, and you don't listen to it, and he did a U-turn, like you said. That's awesome.
The most famous gut feeling thing was Randy Howe at the Classic a couple years ago. He was running back to his spot the last day of the tournament. And he said, something told me.
Yeah.
I just turned around and went all the way back to this bridge that I fish. And he
got his DT6 out.
And he just absolutely the demon and history was made right there. But it's even
morphed into
one of his cool videos that he's has is him going down the lake and just doing a U-turn. All these boats are going this way, and he's turning around, and he's going back. That's a gut feeling thing, and I'm a big proponent of that.
And that was Swindell's point.
Yeah,
that was Swindell's point.
Yeah,
exactly what you just said. He said, "I believe in that."
Yeah.
And he did exactly what Randy Howe did.
Randy Howe is just
Randy Howe. You saw the video.
He's like something just
Randy Howe just
grabbed me
did a U-turn, man. He's like
he went back to this bridge. He wasn't even fishing the freaking thing. He tried it 3 or 4 times, couldn't catch fish off of it, and it was his favorite spot, because he has history down there.
Well, look at what Mark Pappy. Sorry, Mark Pappy. We're going to call you Uncle U. When you're in the zone, you think you're just in that.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
You just gotta, I'm a big proponent of that. Just trying stuff and going with your gut and you're right.
That's what the man said.
Well, when you win a tournament, it's not surprising to you. When you're just in that zone, when you're fishing and you're just catching them and you know what's going on, it doesn't surprise you that you won the tournament. It pisses you off if you lost it. You know what I mean? But it doesn't surprise you when you win it, because it's just like. It's like baseball players when they hit a home run. They don't feel it. They don't feel the ball. You hit that sweet spot in the bat. It's gone. It's just no matter what, it's gone. It's just, and they know right away.
Yeah.
Right away. I mean,
it's funny that you guys say that, because the worst tournaments I've ever had in my life are when I'm standing in the front of my boat going, what do I need to do next? Like, you're already thinking.
Yeah.
And you're done.
Yeah.
The best tournaments I've ever had is when I didn't even think.
Yeah.
You just kind of react. Your day's progressing, and you're making the right decisions.
Yeah.
And you're not sitting there going, what bait should I throw? What should I do?
No.
You're just making
those are special days,
unconscious decisions.
They're special days, and everybody remembers them when you're doing that and you're making those decisions and you're putting fish in the boat, and it's awesome. It just goes really well.
It's awesome. Now, I want to wrap this elite tournament up.
Yeah, put a bow tie in this thing.
And call this done. It was fantastic. But I would like to highlight the Prince of Palatka, Cliff Prince.
Wow.
Cliff Prince.
What's his day one bag? It was gigantic.
32 pounds, 5 ounces.
It was gigantic the first day.
and he was in the zone.
Yeah.
He was in the zone to the point where, if you listen to his dialogue the first couple of days, I mean, he was talking that talk that people who know that they're getting bit on the next cast talk.
Yeah.
And that was a lot. That was my highlight of the show to watch. I mean, the highlight of my tournament was following my boy GDP, but the highlight of the show to watch was Cliff Prince on day 2 of the tournament.
Yep.
It was just like he was in another world. And I mean, I don't know what to tell you. He was just dialed in.
You know what's crazy, George? All these century belts, and then you said what Lunker was 8. Something.
Yeah, Lunker was, and I don't want to sound stupid when I say this, but keep in mind it's Lake Fork. Lunker was only 8 pounds, 12 ounces. And I don't mean to belittle Mark Frazier's 8 pound, 12 ounce, but I'm pretty sure Mark Frazier didn't think 8 pound, 12 ounce was going to win Lunker.
Right.
I mean, they catch so many of them big 9 and 10 pounders down there. So we're having a bit of an open format tonight. We've been real busy here at the SFT, tackle.com, Susquehanna Fish and Tackle. The holiday weekend's coming up. A lot of people are getting ready for a long weekend of fishing. We've been super busy, and, so we didn't have a ton of prep time, but we wanted to keep kind of an open format. We wanted to maybe answer a few questions. But one of the things that I wanted to do was a surprise attack on my 2 co-hosts here. And I wanted to morph into a little segment of what are you throwing right now? So maybe we could get some transitionary music and we can slide on into a little quick segment called What Are You Throwing Now? So, Nick, I'm going to ask you because you just got back from Lake Erie and you have a few tournaments coming up. It's we're still in the spawn here where we live. We got post-spawn fish. We got pre-spawn fish. We got spawning fish. What's your go-to rig right now?
Right now,
What's your high level?
High level. I'm telling you, the topwater bite is on right now. It is. And I like a walk the dog bait. You can take your favorite one out there. It doesn't matter. Zara Spook works great. The Sexy Dog works great. And I'm going with a sunfish pattern. I really like that. Or a shad pattern, depending on where you're fishing. But there's nothing better than a topwater bite. And that post spawn to me is just my favorite time to use topwater.
Oh, yeah.
Now I was just on Blue Marsh too. So anybody out there listening, I was throwing a jig and I just could not get bit on a jig. That's one of my favorite baits. I could throw a jig all day and not even worry about it. But, that Ned rig's working right now. It's on fire and the fish are very reluctant to bite. It's funny because they'll commit to a topwater, but they won't commit to the jig. So you got to kind of soak that Ned rig a little bit and they'll bite onto it.
Well, that's interesting because I love a walk the dog bait. I mean, I literally have one tied onto a rod from now until November. And I am throwing a evergreen shower blow, primarily the 105, although I will throw the 125 when I get around them big tidal water largemouth. I also am throwing a Megabass Giant Dog X. That is a powerful tool when you want something a little less aggressive, but you want to let them know somebody's in the neighborhood. And then, of course, a Super Spook. So if it's windy, if it's, choppy, when you get a little wave, your little topwater can ride the waves and they'll still eat it, but you got to get one that talks to them a little more.
Now, George, what size are you going with?
So the shower blow, I throw the 105, which is I'd call it like just under 5 inches, 4 3/4 maybe. When I get around the big fish, right now Mike and I are on a little bit of a tidal water kick. We're fishing the world famous Chesapeake Bay, which is loaded with biggins, and they're eating big bait. I tend to throw that 125 a little bit, which is a little bit of a bigger bait. And then I also, of course, in the Zara line, I like the Super Spook, which is a pretty good size bait. But it's got a nice sound, a nice presence. I like it on a windy day. So that's kind of where I'm at there to go along with what you're saying. Those are my main guys right there. How about you, Mike? What are you all dialed in on right now?
Well, I mean, it's still, for me, it's still a big spawn thing. The top water's starting like you guys are doing, but I'm still, for me, it's still dragging something. You got to drag something right now, but the chatterbait is still a big player, because you can catch some fish on that really well.
I'm going to need you to narrow it down a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm throwing. I'm throwing a chatterbait.
What are you dragging?
I'm dragging a Senko and a creature bait. I'm flipping a creature bait around and I'm dragging that around because
jackhammer,
fishing a jackhammer. I mean, we discussed this.
What's the trailer though? Because
we discussed
we've
this.
also discussed the importance of the trailer.
Yeah, we discussed this. I mean, the jackhammer is what it is. It's just a freaking
it is
beast, man. It's just an absolute beast.
It is.
It's hard to throw anything else and have any kind of.
It's going to lead up real nicely to what I'm going to be throwing.
You just said what you're throwing.
No, I just was adding into what Nick's throwing. He asked me what kind of topwater I like.
Oh, okay. I like to splash it.
What are you throwing on that chatterbait for a trailer?
Well, I mean, I'm throwing
right now.
I'm throwing the Yamamoto fishtail thing. Zako.
Oh,
and I really like that. I whooped George's ass the other day on it.
You did.
And
well, not exactly, but you whooped my ass on other baits.
Yeah, I caught someone on that. Well, I was catching snakeheads.
We're not counting dragons.
I caught 2 snakeheads on it. I caught 2 catfish and I think 2 bass on it. And
like Noah's Ark.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But but for me, if I'm going to throw a topwater, it's to splash it. That thing, man, post spawn, or even like right now, that's what you want to chuck around and you do one of them little dink. You let it set.
It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but you're talking about the splash it, and I can't help it. Every time I do pre-tackle shop live, I walk over there to that Shimano lures.
Yeah,
and I'm checking out that new top water.
I know. I'm gonna throw it.
I'm telling you what.
That bad boy walks the dog like a spook.
Really?
It's called the World Pop.
Awesome.
It's got, and the thing about that bait that so far I found it walks the dog real good. But the thing about that bait that I really like, it comes out of the box with owner Zowire treble hooks, like premium upgraded hooks out of the box. And it walks the dog like a spook. It's got a beautiful feather on the back, which I think is critical on a topwater most of the time.
Tony Spinelli, next time you're in here, ask me about Ken Pops, because I got a story to tell you about our buddy Habby. But the Ken Pop is awesome too. But I just like that popper.
Splash it.
I like that popper for that. That right on the edge of the grass, that you see a little pocket, you throw it out there and you plop and just let it set. And it's a deadly. And I don't know if it's post spawn. It's like a post spawn, garters kind of
it's in your wheelhouse
bait. It's perfect for this, for this time of year. You got to have the right clarity. I didn't have the right clarity on Sunday, but George threw a buzzbait around a little bit. But I'm still dragging a lot of stuff. I'm dragging it and I'm chatterbaiting.
I noticed some defensive boat positioning when I picked up my buzzbait too. Does anybody make a 9-foot buzzbait rod? Because that's about how far I was from the frickin' bank. I needed a 9-foot rod to make my cast.
Oh crap! I put you right on it, man. I put you right on the. I put you right on the juice.
Double overhand.
I put you right on the juice, and to prove a point.
You kept catching fish, and you kept pulling the boat.
Because I was catching them out on the edge, man. I was
just saying.
I was catching them on the edge, and I'm putting you in the water. You wanted to fish, which there was no fish there.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, we do. You're putting great casts in, like back in these. You're making some great casts.
Well, when you consider the vast acreage I had to cover to get there.
The funny part was, when he first tied it on out in the flats, I decided in my mind that I need to cover water. So I put the thing on 8, right? And I tramped down on it, and I was just like, zing, zing, zing. And George is like throwing this thing out, and it's like, and he was like, what the hell? And I'm like, I'm covering water, dude. I'm looking for grass.
Yeah, nothing like a little brotherly love on the mine.
Hey, 2 of us went out and 2 of us came
though?
back. So that I just be happy
You
that
know what,
happened.
though?
What?
I'm glad you asked me what I'm throwing right now. Because I am hung up on a swim jig.
Nothing wrong with that right now.
I am hung up on a swim jig.
Nothing wrong with that.
I have too many swim jigs. I have a swim jig issue. But right now, let me show you my poker hand that I got going here. I like to call this the Royal Flush. Let me get it all formed up here for you. That's right. 10 to the ace. Suited. The Grass Ripper. So I'm a big fan of swim jigs, and I throw quite a few brands. I don't have a favorite. I have a lot of favorites. But one of my new favorites that came along last fall was the Evergreen Grass Ripper. And what attracted me to it was I'm a big jackhammer guy. And these guys make the jackhammer. So we have a lot of similarities. First of all, the colors. Every jackhammer color is a Grass Ripper color. We have quarter, we have 3/8, and we have half.
I really like that swim jig.
Guess what?
I really like the colors of it.
Guess what? It has the same keeper as the
Jackhammer.
And you know, when you get your
holds
trailer,
everything on there, great.
when you get your trailer locked in on that,
Whether it even if it's not the super plastic, it holds everything great.
yeah, you get a lot of life out of regular plastic. But I fish a lot of Z-Man trailers, and I put one on here. I'm good to go for a couple days. It's got a great hook.
Yeah.
It's got a nice light. I've been throwing it a lot, and it comes in all my favorite colors. You know, right now.
Go shoot the grass. Unbelievable, too.
Right now, I'm fishing black and blue, or I'm fishing what's called bruised green pumpkin, which is blue and green pumpkin. Okay.
I like the Brett Height Delight.
Yeah. I'm fishing a lot of green pumpkin, right? Fishing a lot of green pumpkin.
We're fishing a lot of dirty water. We haven't fished good, clean water yet.
We were fishing Brett Height Delight the last couple trips out.
That's a tough color to beat right there.
That
Good
is
stuff.
That
Good
thing
stuff.
is deadly, man.
And
Put a green pumpkin
depending on your
chartreuse
bait
trailer
fish,
on that thing.
you know, like right now on our tidal waters, we have white perch spawning. On our lakes, we have gizzard shad spawning. So I like to throw the white. Okay. And there's some shad colors that I like. This one here is called chartreuse shad,
It's not bad.
you know, but
I wish they made the green pumpkin shad in that.
that'd be good.
I love that color.
Well, this is a really good one here. It's called Clearwater Shad. Throw him a lot. We throw him a lot. So I'm a swim jig guy. I'm throwing a swim jig a lot.
Mark,
it's a little more subtle than your chatterbait.
George, what are you throwing behind that?
It's been a 50-50 battle. So
give me that jig here.
I've been doing all right with a swim bait on there as a trailer. I caught up a good couple of fish on a Reaction Innovation Little Dipper. Green pumpkin watermelon on the back of the green pumpkin. White trash on the back of the white. And then the last time I was out, they didn't want the swim bait, and it was more of the flapper. And I went with the Rage Chunk from Z-Man. From Strike King. I'm sorry. So I've been throwing the Grass Ripper lately. I've been mixing in a little bit of the Ike's mini swim jig, but the grass ripper's been my baby. So that's
Mark,
what I'm throwing, fellas.
Mark, you want to know how to keep your bait from your rigging it up? I think you're saying keep it from bunching up on you. I don't know if you rig them, but when you go in and you rig from the top and you come down in your plastic, you're going to push it all the way around until it just comes to this bend, right to that bend right there. And if you can get it to come right up around and then pop it out of your plastic and push it up on there, it'll keep that bait real straight, and it won't have it up like this. If you have it up like that, it has a tendency to flip around on the hook set, and then you do get that bunching effect. But so when you rig it, guys are like, how do you rig your bait straight all the time? I always rig it from the top. I come in, I push it all the way around to just where that thing starts to straighten out. And I know that's the right depth. I can pop it out and then push it and thread it up the rest of the way onto the keepers. And then I get a nice straight bait on there. And that way, when you set the hook, it's kind of pushed out of the way. It's not going to bunch up on you and get in the way of your hook. So the original rig, the way you rig it, will keep that from happening a lot. So make sure you do that.
You know, and I was looking at that jig when you brought it out, George, and that hook and that weed guard are just perfect. I mean,
perfect size.
It is perfect.
Yeah.
And Evergreen just makes some really nice baits.
Fantastic.
They really do.
Well, you got the grass ripper.
Yeah.
You got the jackhammer, and you got that shower blow topwater. Okay.
Yeah.
Now they just came out with, guys. Mike, would you be kind enough to grab me one of each size of shower blow? They just came out with, well, not just came out with, actually a year ago, they came out with the Evergreen Shower Blow 77.7. I'm not sure what the 77.7 means. I guess it's 77.7 millimeters. But Mike's going to show you here.
Really?
Sounded good to me.
That's what it is. 77.7 millimeters. I mean,
That's
how hard's that to figure out?
You know, for me, it can be a little hard.
I'm telling you.
So let me show you. I'm really excited about this bait. One of our pro staff guys who does a ton of guiding on the river, a fellow by the name of Jason Shea, smallmouth guy, he's having himself a ball. Now, I want you to notice two things. I'm going to show you the sizes from 125, 105 to 77.7. That would be millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
And the two big ones are 3 hooks, and the bottom one is the small one's a 2 hook. Okay, so we got 125, 105, and 77.7. We have premium sharp hooks, really sharp hooks.
Yeah, they're crazy sticky.
We pulled these hooks out of somebody's hand one day, didn't we?
Probably yours.
No, it wasn't mine. Good feather on the back. Beautiful selection of colors. Obviously, we like the bone a lot. We like the half mirror Wagasaki a lot. But they have colors for everybody.
Mm.
Now, George, with that, most guys have, used a walk the dog bait, the Zara Spook, the list goes on and on. Do you use your rod tip the exact same way with this bait?
Exact.
It's a walking bait. It walks as easy as any of them. With the shape of the body. Plus, it has a little cup lip at the top, so it kisses the water every time it bounces. You get that real nice, that little pop kind of splash type of thing. It's kind of cool.
I do have a tip, and I want to get a couple of these out of the pack and show you. I do have a tip for you. If you get into a crosswind situation or a current situation on a long cast, and you get that belly in your line that affects the walk of your bait, walk your bait with your rod tip up. You get a big bow in your line from the wind, it's going to drag your bait unnaturally. Hold your rod tip up and walk your bait. It's going to keep that line off the water and prevent that. and it makes a huge difference. It also has a great built-in delay for your hook set. But there's a 77. Look at that little guy right there. And there's a 105. And here's the kind of the cup mouth on them. They're beautiful. All kinds of great colors. This is the half mirror Wagasaki. This one here is called Skeleton Chartreuse. But kind of go along with Nick's walk the dog bait discussion, and to go along with, you know, the quality of the evergreen products, you know, even their rods. Very nice. Very nice. So, so that we wanted to highlight that for you guys today, because that's some of the stuff we're throwing. I mean, right now.
Yeah.
That's some of the stuff, you know. Every now and again, it'd be nice to bring this topic up. You know, what are you throwing now? You know,
making a segment.
Yeah,
making a segment.
So yeah,
and you know what, George? That question that you said, what are you throwing now? This is not that other times of year are not special, but this is a special time of year because there's so many options that you could be doing. You could be targeting maybe some pre-spawn bass yet, some spawning bass. And now you have post spawn, and it's just you pick and choose what you want to do or what you want to target.
Well, absolutely. You know, this is the time of the year. You know, spring is one of those times of the year. Once you get into the latter parts of the spawn, when you have a lot of rods on your deck, you have a lot of lures that you're retying. You're retying a lot of knots, right? Everything is in play. You know, and going back to Gerald Swindell running down Lake Fork, trust your gut. You know, this time of the year, trust your gut. You know, Mike and I were struggling on our fishing trip on Sunday, and we just went out there and did some things. And you know what? We had a really high flood tide, which is a very difficult time frame in the tidal industry. We were on the end of the incoming, and you know what? We trusted our gut. We started cranking grass and started catching fish. So, you know, trust your gut. When your gut tells you something, go with it.
Yeah. So let's get back to some of these questions from you guys.
Yeah, let's hit a couple.
JB Weld. How long did it take to learn the tackle business? All of our life. Literally.
Still learning
every day. You know, we started fishing when we were really super young. My dad took us out fishing. So, I mean, that was the implant of it. And we just started learning then, and we just went all the way up through it. And then once we got in the tackle business, the business side of it, you know, you just do business as you do business, but you know, you try to make right decisions and you try to grow properly, in your business, and you'll do well. But it's something you learn every day. Every day you're still learning. We're still learning every day on running the business. Learn something new every day, they say, right? So we're always trying new stuff. And yeah, it's a long road when you get in the tackle business. Connor McLaughlin, random question for you guys. Working a dam, the whitewater after the structure, do they hang out in there? Is there a slower pocket underneath it? So there's a time, it's usually like when it's hot out, they get right up in what I call the bubble, you know, and that's right up against the fast moving ledges. And those fish will actually be in a pocket. And if you're really good at reading water, the pocket might be the size of your fist, you know, with a long tail behind it like this. And that water's rushing over, and then rocks are kind of, you know, there, and they're making that white water. We throw a spinner bait in that situation, or I've thrown top waters in that situation where I can bring it through there right away. And that bubble area is absolutely deadly when the water's, you know, when it gets real hot outside and those fish are aggressively feeding on minnows, coming over that water. Fantastic. So yes, to answer your question, there is a little bubble, but you got to read it. It's not the whole thing. There are real small little pockets in there, little dead spots, if you want to call it, in that fast water. If you can really read it, it's a really hard way of fishing out of a boat because you're on your trolling motor constantly and you're dealing with a lot of current, but it can be very, very rewarding. Some of my most rewarding days were fishing that. Not that I caught a lot of fish, but it was exciting catching them out of those pockets because it was accuracy in casting is primo, to make the right cast on that bubble so that you can get that bait to come through. You got to engage right away. You almost got to anticipate the bait hitting the water, engage right away, and get ready because it's an instantaneous bite. They don't mess around that fast water. It's a fun, fast way of fishing. Johnny Kopp, smallmouth on the Susquehanna River. How's it going out there? Well, it's going great. They're catching the hell out of fish out there. We are in all 3 stages, full swing of the spawn. Wouldn't you say, George? We got
absolutely.
We got some pre-spawn fish left.
A lot of post-spawn.
We've got a lot of post-spawn fish, and we got spawning fish, depending on where you're at in the river. Now, it's scattered about. I really think like the area where we're in, John, down here in Columbia, they're just getting going big time on the spawn. I don't know why they're so far behind, but I have a couple of indicators that I go by, and those fish are just moving onto that structure right now. And it is, I mean, literally like right now, yesterday, the day before, and now they are really starting to spawn down here. So it's kind of weird how that's going.
I got a question for you guys. And he just asked that question on the river.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put you and George in a position right now. You are at one of the lakes in PA, and you have a tournament coming up. And there's 3 phases of the spawn, and it's all happening right now. What are you targeting in practice first? What's your confident part of that spawn to target?
Oh, well, I want to say that for me, it would be the spawning fish, if I was fishing a tournament and I was going to go out and fish it, because the problem is that they're so first into the post spawn, they're hard to catch. It takes a couple days for them to kind of figure out, how they're going to lock on it. So maybe by this weekend, I would be, maybe changing my mind, but I'm going to be fishing shallow. I'm going to be fishing for the pre-spawners and the spawners because I think there's just too many of them right now. There's a lot of them around. A lot of fish left that haven't spawned, especially on this down southern end of Lancaster County.
Right.
You go north, it's different. I think they're even farther behind way up north. They're still way, on the northern part of the river and some of those lakes up there. Talked to a guy from Raystown today, and he said they're just getting on beds now.
Wow.
So it's behind a lot, different areas. So
what do you got, George?
Yeah, I want to broaden it out a little bit. For me, I don't care if it's Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, North Carolina, it doesn't matter. In this time frame, which obviously is going to be earlier down south and later up north, I always attempt the early stages of practice to establish a strong pre-spawn game. And there's 2 reasons for that. For me, one, my biggest weakness as a fisherman is bed fishing. I'm terrible at it. I don't have a lot of experience at it. Where I live, you can't see fish on beds. So I have very low experience with it. And 2, I always prefer to try to get those concentrations of pre-spawn fish, which was a lot like our tournament that we just studied at Lake Fork. Those were post-spawn fish, but my pre-spawn fish that I find are doing the same exact thing. They're in big groups, and you can actually fire them up. Whereas spawning fish, unless they're grass-oriented, are singular fish. grass-oriented spawning fish can be in colonies, like we discussed last week on Tackle Shop Live. You know, you can get these almost like bluegill-like colonies, and that's probably not the best word. It just means there's a ton of largemouth in a big grass bed spawning in very close proximity to one another. So that's kind of the exception to the rule. If I can find that, obviously, I'm locking in on that. But pre-spawn, all of your areas that you put together are groups of fish. So you can set up on offshore, you can set up on shallow water pre-spawn fish, and you can have a bunch of fish milling in and out of one area. The pitfall of that is, and this has happened to me on more than one tournament, was getting on big pre-spawn females, and then during the day they leave to go spawn. And when they leave, I don't know if they have a whistle that they blow or if there's like a shift change siren, but they roll. They roll out. And so that's kind of that, that's kind of the downside to that. So you need to have a backup, but that's where I'm at with that, guys. That's where I'm at with that.
After the this is by Warren Gartrell. After the bass spawn, what is the time frame for bluegill to spawn? I think it's like right away.
Yeah, but it's after the final wave of bass spawn.
Yeah.
So, your bass in your lake are going to spawn in stages. Your bluegill are not going to spawn pretty much until that final wave of bass spawn. The farther north you go, the later that is. Bluegill like to spawn in a warmer water temperature. So, when it's up around that 70-degree mark, low 70s, that's when you're pretty much getting to the end of your largemouth spawn. And that's pretty much when you're getting to your bluegill spawn. And they do congregate. They colonize bass beds. And in a week or two, we're going to do a very in-depth bluegill spawn. It's something we all have a lot of confidence in, a lot of experience with. And we're going to try to get a real nice guest lined up for that. So we're going to break that down hot and heavy. Great question, by the way.
Got all kinds of great comments on top waters. Where's Corbin? He's working again. Corbin couldn't make it tonight, so he is working. Bunching up from Z-Man. Okay, I think I got everybody's questions answered. I hope that worked out real well for you guys.
Do we have any time for real porn?
We always have time for that.
Feel like we need some Barry White playing or something. This is the Stella, the latest and greatest Stella. Look at that. Just had to show it to you because it's like sick. And to even attempt to break down what makes this version of the Stella.
I think there's 40 or 50 features to that reel that are just like uncomprehendable.
I mean, to even break this down would be, it would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of features here that are just so innovative that we need to point them out. And the one is the anti-twist fin. I love it. So, and you're not going to be able to see this, Nick, but underneath that line roller, on the line roller arm. So here we have The line roller. This is the line roller arm. Line roller arm. Line roller. Bale wire. Okay, this is a one-piece, actually machine bale wire. It's totally smooth transition to the roller. But down here, Nick, and you can feel this, this is like a almost like a silicone-like fin of plastic coming out of this line roller arm. It's almost like there's a slot cut in there, and this thing is inserted, and it's called the anti-twist fin. It's like we're at the point now where what can we think of next?
Put it on it.
So we have this super slow, super long oscillation. Look how slow the stroke is on that spool. Okay.
It's amazing.
So what you got here is you have the timing of the rotor spinning and the spool oscillating. That timing is broken down so that line is wrapped in even layers. So you get this beautiful line wrap on this slightly extended spool, which completely eliminates, well, that's a bad word to use. It radically eliminates friction of the line leaving the spool. And when you reduce friction, you increase casting distance. Or I should say the potential for casting distance. They call that infinity loop. I'd love to have the job of coming up with the names for the technology on the reel. This finish right here on this reel repels water. Right? So
good for everything.
This is the new Stella FK. And,
they start at $749, but
yeah,
it's a reel you'll have forever. Yeah. That's a reel you'll have until you quit fishing or you lose
it in a bet.
Yeah. I mean, it's an unbelievable reel. Really something.
So back in stock after a long absence. Accents 3000 size. So the Accents is another one of these high-end, like reel porn type reels. Super shallow fluorocarbon spool, finesse reel. Back in stock. I know there's a lot of people been looking for the Accents 3000. They're back.
It's a full Japanese design reel. You're getting a full Japanese effect out of that reel. So, and guys love them. Shallow spool, you don't have to use a lot of backing. It's right there ready to go.
The other thing that we have vast quantities of now that have been really hard to get on the Shimano theme that we are on now is the SLX DC and the Corrado DC. We don't have all the models, but the models we got a lot of.
Yep.
We are also back up deep in the Stratic business, which is one of the greatest $200 spinning reels made. So that is your tackle update for the night. There have been some very nice shipments coming in. So we'd love to be able to help you with any tackle questions, what have you. And guys, I have one last thing of interest. Yes, Josh, tons of 2500s. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service has a tagging program that they are working with in conjunction with the Maryland DNR. And if anybody from the Pennsylvania Fish Commission is still on the line, please pay attention to how the Maryland DNR is working with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, okay? They're working on figuring out the snakehead distribution, the snakehead effect. So what they do, They went out and tagged a whole bunch of snakeheads in the Chesapeake Bay and the Blackwater River. And if you catch one and you go to their website or call them with your tagging information, after, of course, you harvest the fish, they're going to give you gift cards in the denominations of $10 to $200 based upon the randomness of the tags. So they're incentivizing you to harvest snakeheads and to share data with them because they're trying to figure out, the effect. And I found that very interesting. I found that on the fishing wire this morning, boys. And I thought, you know what? Let me put a little note on here because a lot of our listeners, obviously with our location, are in that Chesapeake Bay region.
Yeah.
On the Potomac River, on the Blackwater River. Now, the Potomac River is not part of this tagging program. They've already studied them snakeheads.
And what they find with that, George? Do you know?
Well, they haven't. They just started this.
I'm talking about the Potomac one.
Well, they found a lot of stuff. There's tons and tons of studies on that. One of the interesting things is that the snakeheads are predatory on other fish, but the bass population's doing well. Maybe not as robust as it once was, and that may not just have to do with snakeheads because the other 1-2 punch on the Chesapeake Bay and all of her tributaries are blue cats, which are ferocious, aggressive predators. So I just wanted to bring up that little snakehead bounty. Keep your eyes peeled for a tag. And, yeah. That's all I got for you, boys.
Yeah. Well,
Nick,
that's a good
any
one.
parting thoughts?
No, I am. One thing I think we can announce, I guess, is we just booked some plans to iCast. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, iCast coming up in July. George and I and Nick are going, and we're working on plans right now for some good coverage of that and what we're going to do there. So it has to start somewhere, and that's paying for plane tickets and booking rooms and getting ourselves all squared away there. So we're real excited about that. And we're going to put together a real good plan for you guys so you can see like what's going on, at that show.
Right.
And we'll try to keep you guys informed of what's coming down the pipeline.
And the other thing, I was talking to Greg on the way in here,
Yeah.
to Palma, and he's got a week, and then he's going to be going to Pickwick.
Yeah.
What we're 5 tournaments in, George, or is it 5? I think it might be 5. Something like that.
I think it is 5.
So we're 5 tournaments in, and it's interesting. We're talking about momentum. And right now he's riding some momentum from these last couple tournaments.
Yeah.
And he wants to keep that going. And he appreciates all the support from everybody out there. And we're just going to keep cheering him on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're excited. He has to keep on trucking to make the classic,
right?
Or the cut for the next year too. The club, but he's right there. He can make it. He can make it happen. So we're cheering him on. He is the man. He's going to do well in these next couple, and we're excited to watch that. So, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we thank everybody. Mike Barr, all you guys, St. Crest, man. How you doing, bud? Ken Wood, nice to see you, buddy. We are going to be back again next Thursday. But until then, you can check out our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our Instagram page.
Like it.
And our
share it.
TikTok. Check it out.
TikTok.
We're adding stuff all the time to that. There's a lot of information that we're doing like during the week that we pop on there with Caitlin and Nick. They are working it hard.
Guys, we have the Memorial Day holiday this weekend. Okay.
We're going fishing.
We get extra time to fish, but while we're out there fishing, let's all remember what Memorial Day is all about.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason we have these privileges that we have in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Absolutely.
all
Oh,
these
yeah.
other countries out there are trying to always take us down. There's a reason for that, because they don't have it. We have it. And that's our armed services that have defended us since the beginning of time. And we should honor them this weekend.
Mm.
And you know what? If you don't have anybody to fish with this weekend, reach out, invite a veteran fishing with you. You know what?
Yeah,
Might change your life too,
absolutely.
right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thanks to all the veterans out there.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, veterans. So until next Thursday night at 7:00, we will see you on the next Tackle Shop Live.
Yeah.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down low and I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. I woke up all soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny game. You know just what I feel. Please tell me your love is real.